Okay, so for example 7 and 8, I'm doing them at the same time. For example 7, we've actually already talked about how to graph the square root of x from chapter 8. It was one of our common graphs. So from chapter 8, we know that the square root of x graph looks like this. It starts at 0, 0, and it makes like a half of a rainbow, okay? So, and we've talked about translations a little bit and shifting in chapter 8. So essentially, the difference between this blue and this function that we have right here is this plus 2. So this plus 2 is on the inside, right? We've done all this before. So since it's on the inside, that means it's going to be super weird. So it's going to be the opposite of what you think. Then it's going left and right. So because it's positive, it looks like we're going to the right, but we're really going left 2, okay? So as long as you know that it's going left 2, you should be pretty solid on your homework. So now, when we graph this, we're going to graph this exact same thing, except instead of starting at 0, 0, we're going to move to the left 2, okay? So I move to the left 2, and then I'm going to draw the exact same picture, okay? So this would be the answer. Alrighty, so, oh, that is not what it asked us to do, is it? Whoopsies! That was actually a practice problem. Examples, let me write that over here. Sorry. The real example 7 just asked us to graph the square root of x. But again, we already learned how to graph this. If you don't know what a graph looks like, you can just make a t-chart, x and y, and then plug in values, right? And then plot those values. But since we already learned that in chapter 8, I'm not going to redo it. So, but what I will do is do that on example 8 because we haven't learned what the cubed root graph looks like yet. So again, if you don't know what a graph looks like, make a t-chart and let's plug in some values, okay? It would be easiest for us to plug in values for x. We should do positives and negatives. So I'm going to do just to make it easier, I'm going to do -6, -1, 0, 1, and 6, okay? You could try the other numbers in between, like -2, -3, -4, -5, or 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll see that you don't get a nice number. Even 6 isn't a nice number. It's still a decimal. But at least you'll be able to see the graph more. So if you were to pick numbers too close to -1, you might not be able to see the full graph, okay? But at any rate, so yeah, we're going to plug those values in. So we have the cubed root of -6, okay? Because this is cubed, it's odd, this negative is fine, right? So what we can do is plug it into our calculator. And whatever spits out, we know that we at least need a negative on the outside, right? In terms of plugging this in your calculator, if you don't have the fancy one, yeah, we can talk about this. We need to change this into a power so you can plug it into your calculator, okay? So let's actually just look at that. So let's look at how to plug these radicals into your calculator if it's not being squared or if it's not being cubed and you don't have that button on your calculator, okay? So we have the rich people, poor people trick. I think I've talked about that before. So the radical is our house, okay? The rich people are on the inside of the house and the poor people are on the outside of the house. If you want to rewrite the radical as an exponential, then we draw a little fraction and we put the rich on the top and the poor on the bottom, okay? So we're going to do the same thing here. Here we don't have an exponential, so there's an imaginary 1 there, okay? So if we want to rewrite this, our x in this case is this -6, right? And then we're raising this to the rich over poor. The rich are on the inside, which is the 1, and the poor is on the outside, which is the 3rd, okay? So now, you should be able to plug this into your calculator and get the answer. No matter what type of calculator that you have, make sure that you guys are practicing. If you do not get the correct answer when you plug it in, it's probably because you didn't use your parentheses correctly. So make sure that you practice. If you need to pause the video to make sure that you get it right, please do that, okay? Because it can be super confusing. If you have this complicated, simple calculator right here, I'm going to show you how to do it. You have to work it backwards, essentially. So yeah, the first thing that I'm going to, first thing that I'm going to do is just write 6, and then I'm going to make it negative, okay? So now from here, I'm going to raise it to a power by hitting this YX button. And now, because I have 1/3, I'm going to have to use parentheses. So I'm going to open up my parentheses and do 1 divided by 3. And now I'm going to close my parentheses. This is not your answer. This is just what's on the inside of the parentheses. And now I have to hit enter to get the actual answer, okay? So we have -1.8. Okay, so this is approximately -1.8. All right? If you have a fancier calculator like this, you could do -6 and then raise it to the 1/3. Let's see if that gives us the answer. It gave us -1.8. Perfect, okay? Depending on what type of calculator you have, you might have to put the -6 in parentheses. Again, I suggest that you play around with your calculator and figure out. You can also use the fraction button here if you wanted to. And it'll still give you the same answer. So just play around with your calculator, please, and figure out how to get the correct answer, okay? Another thing that you can do, I think on some of them, yep. So you could go to this, oh, here it is right there. You see how it has the box? It's a blank one. So you could pick what you want your 3 to be, or what you want that number to be. And you can actually just plug in the -6. So the fancier the calculator, the better it is for you, and it spits out the answer, okay? So back over here, that was just a little side note. Here we know that this is approximately 1.8. Okay, when we plug in -1, you can use your calculator, right? Multiple ways to do it. I'm going to use my little box button. So it's to the 3rd. Oopsie. Sorry. It's to the 3rd, and then I'm going to write -1, and we get -1. Perfect. Okay. Let's say I don't have a fancy calculator. Next, I'm going to do 0. So we're going to do 0, and we're going to raise it, open parentheses, 1 divided by 3, close parentheses, and then enter, and we get 0. Okay. Let's say I want to do it for 1. So I do 1, raise it, open parentheses, 1 divided by 3, close parentheses, and check it. And we get 1. Perfect. And I'm going to do it with the simple calculator one more time because the fancier calculator is really easy, okay? So our next number is 6. So we do 6, and we raise it to the 1/3, right? So we need to use parentheses, 1 divided by 3, close parentheses, and check. And we get +1.8. And then we can just graph these points, okay? So when we graph these points, it's going to look something like this. And this is one of your basic graphs that you are just going to have to memorize so you don't have to keep drawing all this stuff out, okay? A super easy way to remember it, think about a square root, right? Or this cubed root here. It's like a lazy cubed root. Y'all see it? How it makes kind of like a lazy cubed root? So that's a great way to remember how to draw it.